Wow, wait till you meet James Pittar. He is in our virtual green room and joining us from Australia with an incredible book and incredible story, one that is so inspirational. I think that you should run out and buy it immediately. The book is called A Blind Man's Courage in the Face of Loss, Triumph, and Love. Let me set this up before we go to James. Imagine this: you're living the sweet life, good family, everything's going along swimmingly, and suddenly you get this eye disease and you start to lose your sight at 16, but yet you become an open water swimmer. It doesn't stop you. It doesn't slow you down, in a sense. James, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. And the book's called Blind Vision.
Blind Vision, yes. So Blind Vision, tell us the details about writing this. What made you decide you were going to tell your story?
I decided to write this book after doing a charity speech where a friend of mine said, I think you should write a book about your life, your experiences, your swimming, the love of your wife and your family, and the loss of your eyesight. And that's where the subtitle comes from. So I set about. It took me almost 5 years, and every night for 4 months, I would spend 25 minutes on a dictaphone, putting my memory of my life, and then after 4 months, taking all the things from the dictaphone, I sent them off to get typed. It was then sent back to me, the typed copy, and then I had to find an editor. My editor was fantastic, as she didn't swim herself. She really critiqued it. She edited it. She got the grammar right. She got the English right. She was able to get the 189,000 words down to about 110,000, which was a great job. And that takes a lot of skill. She was able to tell me, remember, not only is the swimming people going to read this, but everybody's going to read this book, James. You need to make it so that everybody can understand what is meant by open water swimming or marathon swimming. And you use all these terms as swimming terms. But remember, there are people out there who are going to read this book and enjoy it and won't know anything about swimming. And it was great to have an editor who was that way inclined, who didn't know anything about swimming and had to ask me a lot of information about the terms I used. And she really put it into a nice, succinct way, which really flowed really well through the 19 chapters.
You mentioned it now a couple times too, and I mentioned it in introducing you. Open water swimming, English Channel, Barron Strait, Molokai Channel. Wow. Take us through that. How do you go from this kid at 16 that's losing his eyesight to doing some of the most incredible feats that one can imagine?
Well, my parents are always very much into swimming, and they got us, my brother and sister, and myself, involved in swimming. And when I started losing my eyesight, I really enjoyed swimming. I got involved in the blind swimming pool competitions, but I realised I wasn't quick enough, and I got involved in my first ever open water swim with my brother, and it was a 2.5K swim from one beach to the next beach. In Sydney, and from memory, it was quite funny in that my brother came and swam with me, and everyone went off go. There were 900 swimmers, and we all wore orange caps. And at one point, my brother, he lost me, and he said to his mate, "Where is he?" And his mate said, "He's there with the orange cap on." And my brother said, "Yeah, there's 900 of them as well." But he did eventually find me, and we did the swim. And at the end of the swim, I thought, I really love that. And I started getting involved in the longer swims, like 6 and 8Ks in lakes, with my friends and my brothers and other people who'd swim with me. And then one day I met the great Des Renford. For those who don't know, Des Renford is an Australian who attempted the English Channel 19 times and succeeded 19 times. And I said to myself, I want to swim the English Channel. And that was really the start of it in 1991, when I met Des, and I went, that's what I want to do. And it took me till 1998 to swim the English Channel, but it was really about the process, and the process was about proving that you could swim the English Channel as a person, and that was that took some time, and then knowing the rules of the English Channel. You can't touch anyone on board the boat or the boat itself or the people, and trying to think outside the box for a blind person. How was I going to swim in the open water when I can't touch anyone, as that's deemed as assistance? So we had things like a loud hailer, one long blast for left and two short ones for right, and feeding poles for my feed. And it was the process. It was a long process to get to the start line at Dover Harbour. And I thought, yeah, I've got here. I can do the swim now. And I was fortunate enough to attempt the English Channel and complete it on the first go, which was just a great thrill. It took almost 14 hours. And it was just a thrill. And I think that whole process going from go to woe, right from getting your team together. And I've always known that in all of my swims that my team does a lot of work for me. Unfortunately, doesn't get a lot of the kudos sometimes, but they do a lot of work, and it's an entire process that you have to go through.
What was the most difficult swim for you?
Most difficult swim I've ever done would be the Cook Strait swim between South and North Island and New Zealand. It was difficult because it was around about 14, 15 degrees water temperature. That's about 59 degrees Fahrenheit. And it started out in quite nice conditions. It was a sunny day, and it was about a 28-kilometre swim. And the first 6 hours went really well, and I was swimming well. I thought I was swimming well. Things were going well. Conditions were nice. It was sunny. Yes, it was cold in the water, but it wasn't too dramatic. And then my mate on the boat said, he's an hour and a half away from finishing. Brilliant. We'll be having a celebratory drink. And as the words left his mouth, the 65k an hour wind came up and the 4-metre swells. And for the next 2.5 hours, I just got smashed by these waves, and it just kept on. And I mean, the advantage of, I think for me being blind, the advantage was that I couldn't see what was happening next. I couldn't see that the IRB that was next to me, the inflatable rubber boat next to me, was actually flipping in the air when it hit waves. I couldn't see that. And 2.5 hours later, we got to within 600 metres of the shoreline. And for those 600 metres would normally in a normal time take me about 12 or 15 minutes. It took me 40. And eventually we got to the rocks and we got there. And the comment that was made after the swim was, the only reason you succeeded, James, was because you couldn't see. You couldn't see all the dramas happening around. You couldn't see that there were helicopters above you waiting to whisk you off the rocks, which didn't happen, thankfully. You couldn't see the drama that was unfolding around you. You just kept swimming. You kept hearing the whistles, and you just kept swimming. And so in that regard, being blind was the reason I did succeed. I think other people who might have seen the commotion might have put them off.
Boy, no kidding. And your story is so fascinating and filled with so many moments like that. When people read Blind Vision, what do you hope they take away?
I hope they take away the inspiration of the book, the inspiration of the swims, to show people that even though you're blind or you have a disability, you can do anything in life. As I said, I came from a background where, as you've said before, up to the age of 16, I could see and had a loving family, and then all of a sudden started losing my eyesight, and then was lucky enough to go out and complete open water swims all around the world. So I hope that people take the inspiration of the swims. I hope that they look at read the book and think about the swims, and maybe they might want to attempt some of those swims themselves and look at what the process and what we went through, and might get some inspiration. It might only just inspire them to go out and do a swim that or a challenge in their life that they've never done before. And I think that's the aim, is to inspire people, to get people to read the book. It also talks about the way I dealt with the loss of my eyesight through my family and friends, and how great my family and friends were in relation to the loss of my eyesight. And then obviously not only the love of my family, but my wife, my daughter, and love of friends and family, and also the love of when you're overseas doing swims and you've got your 3 or 4 mates who are with you, and their love and their respect. I hope it also shows, I think, in a lot of the swims, the respect that I'm given by a lot of people around the world. And I hope people take a lot of things out of it in inspiring them, getting them looking at swims and having a lot of fun, seeing the fun and the adventures that we had, that I had as a blind person, and the adventures in places where maybe you didn't speak English is not the first language, and how you deal with that. And especially, like, for example, you touched upon the Bering Strait swim at the start of the interview. The relationship of me coming and meeting people, 65 others on this swim. I didn't know any of them. I arrived in a Russian airport, not knowing anyone, and in fact was just, I got to say, was fairly scared at that point because I really didn't know any of these people. We hopped on a Russian military ship for 12 days, and we swam with people from all over the world, and from Russia, from Ukraine, and from United States of America, and 16 other countries. And it was just a great time, and everyone just respected each other, respected their abilities, and we got the job done. But and that was, I think, hopefully that it shows that. And also some of the people I've met along the way, such as I was lucky enough to do a swim from Robben Island to Blauberg, from Nelson Mandela's place of imprisonment, and to meet Annie Daniels, who had been with Nelson Mandela. Some of those people you meet along the way are just humble, and some people are just really humble. I find in open water swimming that the open water swimming community are very loving, very caring, very respectful, and always give their time.
Well said. Blind Vision, A Blind Man's Courage in the Face of Loss, Triumph, and Love. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever great books are sold. James, what a pleasure to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for all your support.